almost heaven. West Virginia, Blue Ridge Mountain, Shenandoah River. Life is old there, older than the trees, younger than the mountain, blowing like a breeze. Country roads take me home to the place I belong. West Virginia, mountain mama, take me home, country road. I love that song. If I could, I'd take a country road back and I'd spend a day in the office again with Marianne. Because in this story, I'm going to tell you about a little gift that Marianne gave me. And it was the gift of recommending I attend a course called the Landmark Forum. It was a weekend class held in Bloomington. And what the Landmark Forum is a weekend seminar on self-improvement and understanding who you are. It's a very, in every way, it's a group therapy as well as a lesson in personal psychology, which I think were two very important things. And I want to focus on this story because the Landmark Forum was one of these first moments for me where I began to realize I was what's called consciously incompetent about a number of things. And it isn't that any of these things are unknown, it's just that I didn't know them about myself. And so the Landmark Forum was beautiful because there were a number of things that it went through, and just two in particular that I'm going to talk to. And the first one is this idea that they call a racket. And a racket is a persistent and ever always present complaint or a belief system. For example, I can't invite my mom over for Easter because mom will never come over for Easter. So you never invite mom over for Easter. That's a racket. Invite mom. Mom might surprise you. And so rackets, those complaints, those belief systems about things that we don't think are possible are actually quite manifest wrong. And so it teaches you to move past those things. Even though you think your brother may never show up for a Christmas dinner, still ask. He may surprise you. The second thing that the Landmark Forum taught me was the idea that there are three very specific events in people's life that characterize who they are. And the first one occurs when an individual is around the age of 4 or 5. And as they described it, what happens is that the child realizes that something's not right. It isn't necessarily that something's wrong. It's just that there's something there that's not normal, and it has to be addressed. It has to be reacted to. They have to do something. And so how people react to that first event, peppers. It actually patterns how we deal with all similar events in the rest of our life. We don't realize it, but we've become imprisoned by almost a single event. For me, that single event was a little kitten that I accidentally killed when I was a child. I picked a kitten up on my way home from school because I thought our kittens had followed me. This kitten was older. This kitten was probably a couple weeks older. And at the time, I was still going to just afternoon kindergarten. And so the next morning, I'd been up playing and I'd been in the garage with the kittens. And what we've been doing is putting the kittens in the back wall, and then you run out of the garage and close the garage door so they stay in. And that little kitten was bigger than the other ones and followed after me. And when the garage door came down, it came down on its head. I didn't know what to do. And it was a very sad moment for me because I love cats. I love kittens. And this terrible thing had happened. And in that moment, I decided I had to do something. Because that's what you do. You do something. And so I went and told my mom. And I don't think my mom, who worked 3 to 11, was still in bed and half asleep. I don't think she quite realized what I had told her. And the severity of this event to me traumatically, if you will. And so I had to deal with the situation myself. And I think I buried the cat in the garden in the back. The kitten. And, these types of events suddenly became apparent to me as how I deal with things. I had to be the one who took care of the problem. And if you look at my characterization through life, I take understanding and solving things very seriously. The second one that happens to individuals, they say, when they're around 10 or 11, maybe 12, just as they're hitting puberty. And it's this realization that I'm different. It's sort of this self-realization that you're developing your own personality, characteristics of who you are. And for me, I realized that big moment was developing in 6th grade. And who I was cemented with the locker room incident. Yeah, I didn't fit in. I wasn't like other people, especially when I did things like that. And so if you asked yourself, why does Bob feel like he has to do these videos? Why does Bob feel like he has to unwind the cataclysm? Well, the answer is, I'm just doing what I can to help the situation, because that's what I do. And if it's okay, I'm going outside the box on these videos, because that's also what I do. The third event comes to individuals when they are in their late teens, maybe 16, 18, 19, and they say that it's the moment where individuals realize that I'm on my own. And it was interesting because we'll come back to this very specific piece in a much later video. But it was true. I realized when I was in the Air Force that I couldn't just get out, and I was on my own. And so a rugged independence set in, that I usually just take care of myself as best I can, that I can make it through anything, that I can push through and succeed. And in fact, most of my life, and in part because I was bullied, I had made the decision that no one was going to decide for me whether I could succeed or not. I was going to succeed despite other folks, if you will. When I went through the class, I gained the perspective of these 3 items that were very interesting in my life. And it wasn't so much that I hadn't had some sense that these had an influence over who I was, but it was put in perspective for the first time. And so one of the things I want us to talk about really quickly is this idea that there are 4 stages of consciousness. And until I did the Landmark Forum, I was unconsciously incompetent about the things that controlled much of my life or made me who I am. The second stage of consciousness is called consciously incompetent. So I suddenly became aware that there were things that I didn't know about why I was the way that I was and who I was. The third stage is called consciously competent, which meant that I then began to look at my life and understand more and actively applying these ideas about what drove my behavior, what was good about it, what was bad, and just sort of having an idea about why I act in some situations the way I do. The fourth level of consciousness is called unconsciously competent. And the unconsciously competent is that part of your personality that operates automatically. You don't have to think about it, you just know it. It's the, buttering your bread, toasting the toast, whatever it might be that you do with a high degree of just automatic behavior, you are unconsciously competent. The Landmark Forum began to expose to me these things in my life that I became consciously competent and aware of. But that's the part that's going to develop in the third story here on my GE Genworth days, because over these next 11 years, I became incredibly consciously competent about a lot of different things. And in a lot of ways, it began on 9/11. And that story is going to be in the next video, because on 9/11, I had just begun wholesaling, and I found myself in a hotel in Appleton, Wisconsin. With that, I thank you very much for your time today, and I'd like you to take some time, if you haven't looked into the 4 stages of consciousness, because when I'm talking about psychedelic science a little later in the videos, it'll be important to understand not just the things that form who we are, but why they control our behavior in patterns and in cycles. Have a great week. Peace.